Howdy, Immortalium here, and today I'm doing a review of the first season of Lupin III. Now, before I start, discussing my opinions of the series, I will just explain my experience of this franchise. I've already explained this in a previous video that I've done, but I'll repeat so here. So, my first experience of anything Lupin was the Castle Cagliostro, as most people have had their first experience of Lupin through that, which is Hayao Miyazaki's directorial debut, and it is an excellent film. If you haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend you do so. You don't need to have seen anything previously Lupin in order to enjoy that film, so definitely check it out. Besides that, the only other Lupin III film I could get my hands on was Mystery of Mamo, and Mystery of Mamo is a lot more average, is how I would phrase it. Not nearly as enjoyable as Castle Cagliostro. It's not a bad film, and it's worth picking up, particularly if you're into Lupin. But yeah, I'd say definitely go for Castle Cagliostro first. And then my only other experience was a more recent kind of a TV series that they made called Fujiko Mine, or The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, which had a lot of talent behind it, actually. Shinichiro Watanabe was the music producer for that, and Takashi Koike, who directed Redline, he was the art director for that series, so it had great look. And actually, Takashi Koike, I believe, is now directing a feature film in this same kind of style as The Woman Called Fujiko Mine. I think it's about Lupin and Daisuke first meeting up or something like that. But anyway, so that's all my experience of Lupin has been so far. And notice that I have not seen in any of that the very first series of Lupin III until now. So, yeah. What is this series about? I'll just kind of give a quick summary of that. So this series, as you can guess from the name, is about a man called Lupin, and he is actually the grandson of the famous Arsène Lupin character from the Maurice Leblanc novels. He is a master thief, and a lot of the episodes see him going after some kind of very valuable treasure, with the assistance of his partners, Daisuke Jigen, who is a master gunsman. I believe he can do a quick draw in 0.3 seconds, and Goemon Ishikawa, who is a samurai. Now, add into all that, he's constantly getting chased by Zenigata, who is this inspector, who, has made it his life's purpose to capture Lupin and put him behind bars. And the femme fatale, Fujiko Mine, who you can never tell, is she really going to help Lupin, or is she going to betray him at the last second? And you've got yourself a very interesting cast of characters. And the thing is, several things to point out about this series. This series aired from 1971 to 1972, and was one of the first, if not the first, TV series to be anime TV series to be aimed at a more adult audience. So it's kind of breaking a lot of bounds at this point, and of course it's a bit of an experiment. But overall, it is a superb series. It's done episodically, so each episode is kind of its own standalone thing. But the quality of the majority of the episodes is really high. Then you get your, couple of episodes that are average here and there, but overall, the plots of the stories are just absolutely superb. They catch you off guard, they're very clever, etc, etc. So, I really love the storytelling in a lot of these episodes. And, of course, the relationship between the characters is brilliant as well. The only relationship that I have an issue with, really, is the relationship between Lupin and Fujiko. Not because of the fact that, I do like their relationship in that she's unpredictable, but what I would like to have seen Lupin do is that he become a lot more kind of wary of Fujiko. He seems to be a bit too gullible when it comes to her, so I did find that a little annoying. But besides that, the relationship between all of the characters is just, brilliant. They really spark off each other. Now, the only thing I'm going to point out is, just like in The Woman Called Fujiko Mine, I don't know why, Goemon always seems to get the short end of the stick when it comes to screen time. So, the other four characters got a lot of screen time. Goemon, despite being the focus of 2 episodes, I believe, he spends a lot of the time just in the background, and you know, he doesn't really get that much screen time after those 2 episodes. So you know, it's a bit surprising and a bit disappointing. But you know, what can you do? Now, considering the fact that this was from the 1970s, the animation holds up surprisingly well. This was animated by TMS Entertainment, who have gone on to animate Kenichi the Mightiest Disciple, Detective Conan, I think is... or that's Studio Dean. No, I think Detective Conan is TMS as well. And, you know, a variety of other shows. And the animation in this series is, you know, actually holds up really well. You know, the character designs are very pleasant and clean looking. There's a great deal of fluidity to the characters, particularly in the latter half of the series, when the directors kind of changed up. I'll get into that a bit more in a moment. And something I have to say that I absolutely love about this series is, despite the fact that it is aimed at an adult audience, or, you know, an older audience at least, which a lot of anime series seem to interpret as being more realistic. You know, if it's a seinen, you know, the characters have to be more realistic, they have to act more realistic. In this series, it's still got this very cartoony style to it, which I absolutely love. Like, for example, when the police show up, the cars are like actually, the police cars are actually like going over each other, you know, in an attempt to get to Lupin. And, you know, the character expressions are absolutely hilarious and over-exaggerated. Particularly, I absolutely loved seeing this dance done by Zenigata. He was dancing with a woman, and he was just the most mad and over-the-top thing you ever saw. So, absolutely loved the style of this series. Now, the only thing I will say about the animation that I think doesn't hold up, I think this is just because of the times, and that is the background, the looping of the backgrounds isn't quite as fluid as modern anime. You know, like for example, when the Lupin car is, you know, driving down a street, the background will be looping over and over, and, you know, in later incarnations, you know, that'll be very fluid, you know, it'll just flow into each other as it loops over. In this series, basically, you can see this kind of flick every time it begins to loop again. So it'll, like, you know, move a certain amount of the background, and then suddenly, you know, kind of flick, and you kind of see, like, the background suddenly shift over back to the beginning. So it's not quite as fluidly done, and some people might find that annoying. I found it maybe annoying for like a little while, but then I just kind of got used to it. So yeah, overall the animation of the series actually holds up surprisingly well. Now, part of that is because of the directors. So at the beginning of this series, the only director that was directing this was a guy called Masaki Osumi, who he wanted to have the TV series to be a lot more loyal to the manga being a seinen. He wanted it to be dark, he wanted it to be, you know, kind of violent, sexual, etc, etc. But as time went on, the ratings for Lupin III was really, really bad. Like, I mean, you know, abysmal. So in an attempt to kind of save it, they brought in 2 other directors. And most of you should recognize these names. The 2 other directors that they brought in for Lupin III, Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, as in the founders of Studio Ghibli. So, I think at the midpoint, like the 3 of them are kind of sharing the director's seat, and then for the last, like, few episodes, it was like just Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata. So, the style of the series changes over time, particularly since Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata, they kind of reduced the level of sexuality and violence in this, and kind of give it a more of a cartoony style, as well as more comedic, etc, etc. Not only that, but from like what I've read, they also like really improved the animation quality of their episodes. Now I can see that there was a particular example I think that was given where in the one of the earlier episodes in this series, Daisuke and Lupin are in a plane and they're moving across the sky, but there's no movement at all. It's just a kind of a still, you know, kind of movement. And, you know, Hayao Miyazaki wouldn't stand for that. He'd add a lot more kind of fluidity to the characters. I guess possibly because of the fact that since they were more cartoony, you know, it was less expensive to actually animate the whole thing. I don't know. Anyway, point is, you know, if you're a Studio Ghibli fan, you know, this is, you know, kind of where, you know, they began their careers. Not quite beginning of their careers, but, you know, pretty early in their careers. So, And this is definitely worth checking out for Studio Ghibli fans. Now, for the actual voice acting, something I need to point out. First of all, there's no English dub in this, and at first I found that a little distracting because I watched all other Lupin series in English. But, you know, the actual Japanese cast are really good in this. You know, they're really kind of over the top and stylistic, and they really bring a lot of character to their characters. So, you know, I really do love the actual voice acting in this. But again, showing part of the age, I'll explain, in a lot of anime, in fact actually the majority of anime, the actual animation is done first, and then you know, the voice actors then brought in afterwards to dub over it, in contrast to, you know, animation done in other countries where, you know, the actors deliver their lines first and then the animation is done to accommodate that. And the problem with this series, in regards to that, is that the lip syncing isn't the best. Let's just put it that way. Like, you know, the characters will be speaking and it'll cut over to another character, but the line is still being delivered, like the latter end of the line, from the previous character, and the other character is still talking. So for a brief second, it seems like, you know, say Lupin's voice is coming out of Daisuke's mouth, which is a bit, you know, distracting. You know, that is probably like one of the more annoying aspects of this series for me. But, you know, I got used to it after a while. The actual quality of the voice acting is very high. So, you know, I was a little disappointed at that, but I just took that as part of the style at the time. And, you know, it is a flaw. That I will agree with. Now, the soundtrack, as you can imagine from the 70s, it's got this very cool style to it. Kind of, how can I put it, like a pop kind of thing. Not J-pop necessarily, but just a pop style. One thing I will have to point out is that I'm not keen on that opening. The rest of the series has got this, you know, really cool kind of music, really cool soundtrack. But the opening is just like, it's like Lupin, 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 and it's like Lupin, you know, just a guy saying Lupin for the entire opening. So I like, the actual tune is good, but I don't like, you know, the using just one word throughout the entire opening. And I think at one point it goes like yabba dabba dabba dabba, but I don't really count that as a word, you know. So anyway, yeah, overall, I would like highly recommend this series. You know, the storytelling is great, the animation holds up surprisingly well, the voice acting is strong, even though there are some flaws, there are some mediocre episodes. You know, the lip syncing is not as good as it could have been, looping isn't as good as it could have been, etc, etc. It's still a really, really good series, and I highly recommend you guys pick it up. Now, this copy that I have is from Discotech, who are an American distributor of anime. And oddly enough, despite the fact that it says Region 1 on the back of this box, it's actually region free. So no matter what you know, DVD player you play this on, it'll run. So, you know, don't worry about that. You can just order it, as far as I can tell. Now, we also have a lot of special features, and this is really, really good. So, first of all, we have both versions of the Lupin III pilot film. The pilot film was something that was done, you know, by people, by some animators and voice actors and all that on their own time, to kind of try to sell the concept of, you know, a series of films starring Lupin. And you know, after a while, that pilot film was modified to actually try to promote it as a TV series. So, both versions of the pilot film, exact same animation, different voice actors for some characters, oddly enough. And one of them is like, you know, in cinema kind of widescreen, whereas the other one's in kind of 4:3, you know, which was standard for television sets at the time. And the extensive notes written and compiled by Reed Nelson of LupinTheThird.com. That's where most of the extras in this you know, box set come from. Basically, you know, each episode has its own kind of, you know, like notes behind the scenes and, you know, all that. They're all notes, you know, so they're, you know, you will have to read, but they're quite extensive and definitely worth checking out. We also have some audio commentaries on select episodes. Now these commentaries are like quite factual and, you know, like they're not really like dynamic in the way that a lot of other commentaries are, but they do provide a lot of information. So if you really want to know like a good bit of information behind Lupin III, definitely check out these commentaries. And then you have the essays by Daniel Thomas McGeans from the Ghibli blog. I didn't really check that out, so I'm not 100% sure about that, but you know, definitely if it's anything like the notes written by Reed Nelson, it's definitely worth checking out. And finally, a wealth of data including weapons, vehicles, song lyrics, and more. So there are a lot of extras on this you know, box set. It's very comprehensive, so definitely worth picking up. So overall, I don't see why anyone shouldn't have this in their collection. It is a great series. It really holds up well, and you know, there's not really much more I can say about it. You know, just pick it up. Why haven't you picked it up yet? So yeah, thanks for watching. Don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and bye bye.